Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the motion before us. And while my constituency is not directly impacted by the construction of the roads on the West Coast and the Millennium Highway, my constituents use those roads when traversing the country to the south, when going to the airport, and what have you. However, Mr. Speaker, the bigger reason why I stand in support of this borrowing of $7.9 million US, which is counterpart funding, as we've been told, for the construction of those roads, is for the economic impact it will have for the socio-economic development of this country, given the circumstances that we face right now with this pandemic. Mr. Speaker, every effort should be made, no effort should be spared in attempting to change course and to provide a different trajectory as far as economic development is concerned, given the fact that our main industry, our main income earner, tourism, has been pretty much decimated by this coronavirus, and we are not certain, and we see no bright light immediately appearing on the horizon as far as the return of normalcy in this industry as far as that is concerned. So, Mr. Speaker, it is important that as a country, we take whatever steps we can. We pursue whatever measures that are within our powers to bring back as much economic activity as possible in this country and to provide jobs and economic growth to St. Lucia to the extent that we can, given the limitations that have been created by this virus that we face as a global pandemic. Mr. Speaker, I think it is disingenuous on the part of some of the members of the opposition to suggest that this should not be a priority. Yes, as we have done, we must pursue stimulus packages and social programs. We have done it, we will continue to do it. But at the same time, we must remember that if we are to ensure the survival of this country, and we are to ensure that coming out of this pandemic, that St. Lucia finds itself on a path where it is possible for us to recover as quickly as possible, we must pursue whatever economic activities that we can. I was very disturbed when I heard the leader of the opposition, Mr. Speaker, make mention of roads in the Grosley area, almost as if to suggest that that should not be pursued. Mr. Speaker, I will defend with every fiber in my body the right of the citizens of the Grosley constituency to proper roads for them to navigate on the I will not argue the fact that we make more than a significant contribution to national development, national economic development by way of taxes and what have you. I'm saying just as every other constituency, just as every other citizen, we in Grosley are entitled to better roads. As their representative, I made that solemn promise in 2016 that this term would be the term when I pursue primarily the repairs of their roads. I understand, Mr. Speaker, as a politician myself, the trepidation and the fear that the pursuit of that promise brings about to the opposition. The fulfillment of that promise, I know, may dash many hopes. But now is not the time to put political consideration ahead of national development and people's interests. Mr. Speaker, I heard the member from Denry North make reference to debt. And he attempted to paint a picture to suggest that when his regime was in office, that they were more judicious than we were with public debt. I want to quote a simple figure without going into any details. I want to just quote a simple figure that will debunk that misinformation. Mr. Speaker, I want to remind the honorable member that as far as debt is concerned, government debt expanded by an average of 3.6% in the 3 years 2017 to 2019. Relative to that, in the previous 3 years, 2014 to 2016, government debt grew by on average by 4.5%. So that in itself tells you that the misinformation that is being pursued, the mischief that is being pursued, Mr. Speaker, is for political aggrandizement and not for the interests of this country. Mr. Speaker, I have even sat here and watched the behavior of some of the members opposite. The shameful, disgraceful behavior where they take you on to the point, Mr. Speaker, where you have to vacate the chair to bring back some semblance of sanity, normalcy, and peace and order in this chamber. Mr. Speaker, what is being perpetrated, what the opposition is inciting in this country today, I want to stand here to say, is akin to treason. And I say so, because,
Honorable member, just be careful with your words. You do not want to give.
I'm being very careful with my words. I am being very careful with my words, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members.
I protest you are denied.
Honorable members.
And Mr. Speaker, if we want to talk about protest, if we want, and I would like to be heard in silence, Mr. Speaker, as provided under the standing orders of this honorable house. I will not have you shout across whether I'm
Honorable, please continue, sir.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, as long as you take control of this house, I will continue. I want to be heard in silence.
Honorable member.
Mr. Speaker, I have no opposition, no problem with protests as long as it is within the law, as long as it is peaceful. I have no problems with that. But some members who want to incite protests to cause division, or that may lead to disruption.
Honorable member, our standing orders. Our standing orders, the one that you ask that we follow, makes it clear that we should not impute improper motives to members, whether of this house or the other house. I'm going to ask you to be very control of your words and do not in any way impute improper motives on our members of this house.
Mr. Speaker, I'm fully cognizant of the provisions of the standing order, and I'm very well familiar with all the subsections of standing order 35. I have not accused anyone of anything. I said I will not support inciting protest for the purpose of causing destruction. That is what I said, and I repeat that.
About the treason. You see,
Honorable member, I have continued, but I've just said to you.
I would like the protection, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am saying that at this time, it is incumbent of every single member sitting in this honorable house to come together in the national interest. This is not a time for the pursuit of political interests. And when we, given the circumstances that we face today, pursue any interest that can be detrimental to the development of our country, to our survival coming out of this pandemic, Mr. Speaker, we have to be careful that while we may enjoy immediate gain, the question is, down the road, what will be the value of that gain? Because you can set a precedence that you may not be prepared to deal with if you succeed in the goal that you pursue. And I'm just saying so to ask every member here to be mindful that this is not a time when we as leaders in this country should be inciting any division. This is a time for us to come together to see how best we can overcome this crisis that is global in nature that we as a small island are facing. I do not believe that it is insurmountable for us to overcome the crisis that we are facing. But Mr. Speaker, some of the things that we have to do, we must do. One of the things that we must do is the pursuit of economic development in this country for the provision of economic activity, provision of jobs, and to ensure that this country can come out of this pandemic better prepared than we went in. When we develop our highways and byways, Mr. Speaker, when the tourism industry returns to normalcy, we would have had a better product to welcome tourists back to our shores. That in itself will make us more economically competitive in the future. So when you spend money on such projects, that is money well spent. Mr. Speaker, I have advocated in this honorable house that you don't just spend money because it is at your disposal. I have advocated, given our circumstances, we do not have the luxury of wasting money. We have to invest money. This, Mr. Speaker, I applaud as a worthy investment that will redound to the benefit of the country and its citizens. Mr. Speaker, I want to say that going forward, I will support every move, because I know my friends with financial and economic background may have a little problem and difficulty with some of the social programs. I want to take this opportunity, while I advocate for economic development, that we look at socio-economic development as a whole. And that is what this government is doing. To advocate that we take money and just give to people, Mr. Speaker, that is not the kind of mindset we want to create. That is not the kind of country we want to build. That is not the kind of development we want to pursue. We want our people to understand that we all will be far better off if we have a workforce that is prepared to put their shoulder to the wheel and to work for what they want. Yes, Mr. Speaker, there are those who are incapable for various reasons, either by virtue of age, illness, or other physical circumstances, may not be able to fend for themselves. And we as a state have to take care of those people. Mr. Speaker, I stood here during the debate on the estimates, and I said, and I will repeat, I am proud to say that I am associated with an administration that even at these crucial times, I got an increase for social programs. So when you hear talk, Mr. Speaker, about this administration not caring, not providing for the vulnerable and the poor, Mr. Speaker, that is just political rhetoric that is intended to mislead, and there's a lot of propaganda that is just being disseminated, Mr. Speaker, for the purpose of misleading. Only this morning, I was asked by a constituent, in fact, a constituent expressed disgust only this morning to me, indicating that she thought it was very unfair that in the midst of COVID-19, that we as a government took a salary increase of 55%. Mr. Speaker, I took the pain, I took the trouble to explain that that was not the case. That is propaganda being peddled, but that is not the truth, that is not the reality. As you would be aware, Mr. Speaker, there was the Salary Review Committee set up in 2007, who deliberated, did their work, and submitted a report to the Cabinet in 2009. They recommended an increase for permanent secretaries, deputy permanent secretaries, Governor General, Speaker of the House, parliamentarians. Mr. Speaker, this administration was in office then. We considered the current economic situation at the time. We proceeded to provide permanent secretaries, deputy permanent secretaries, and other civil servants with their increase. But we deferred our increase. That is the truth. That is the reality. Mr. Speaker, upon return to office in 2016, I recall distinctly the matter was raised because some members of the opposition, Mr. Speaker, indicated that they were entitled to that salary increase and that they wanted the salary increase. That was a matter debated in Cabinet. And the conclusion by Cabinet is that, yes, we recognize that it was recommended that parliamentarians get the increase, but as soon as we were able to put the economy on a better footing, we would issue those payments. Mr. Speaker, I didn't agree to that position because I am well off, or because I didn't need it. I agreed to that position in the interests of our country. Mr. Speaker, however, we are a law-abiding country. We are a law-abiding administration. The actual truth is, and I'm not suggesting for a moment that the individual did not have a right to do so, but let's not mislead the country and try to score political points by spreading propaganda. The truth is, this administration was taken to the court of law and challenged for not having paid that increase. Obviously, Mr. Speaker, the individual won because by law, parliamentarians were entitled to that increase, an increase that was long delayed for various reasons that I've mentioned, some of which I've mentioned. Mr. Speaker, the matter was taken to a court of law. You had an opportunity, Mr. Speaker, there are members here who had an opportunity to explain the position as I am doing now, but instead made misleading statements to suggest that I did not take any salary increase during COVID-19, and if I was given any salary increase, I would return it. Instead of simply explaining, as I am doing right now, what the situation is. We must stop that kind of naked, unashamed pursuit of political office.
Billion-dollar liars.
The time will come for a political campaign. Now is a time of crisis. You have to put your shoulders to the wheel, support the administration in ensuring that we come out of this situation for the better, for our people. Mr. Speaker, I am fully cognizant of the fact that mistruth can come in various forms. It can come by omission.
It can come by $1 billion.
It can come by implying. It can be left to people to make deductions. And it is cleverly done by some of us here. Cleverly done by some of us here. Instead of being open, frank, and honest. That is what is required now, not political interests, personal political interests, the pursuit of political office that I'm seeing that is taking place right now. Now is not the time for that. An election is due in a year. An election is due in a year. There will be time enough. And Mr. Speaker, having said so, I want us as leaders in this honorable house, I want us in this honorable house to understand as leaders in a democratic country, democracy requires certain principles be adhered to and observed. After an election, you have to respect the outcome of the election. I want to say directly to the members opposite, you do not come and make threatening remarks and try to incite any negativity on the part of your supporters instead of accepting and observing the fact that another regime has won, congratulate them and allow them to function and govern like we allow yours to do when we Mr. Speaker.
Honorable member, I did not want to take away from there.
Yes, master.
But remember where we are.
Motion before the house. There's no motion anymore.
I didn't get you here.
I was saying to you, honorable member, that the motion
I'm
before.
hearing you because of the crosstalk.
Okay.
We'll respond. Trust me.
Just remember what is before us.
Pardon?
I'm saying I'm not wanting to take your thunder.
Okay.
But remember the motion before us.
Mr. Speaker, I am on target. I am on topic. Mr. Speaker, we are being told that we should not pursue the borrowing of those funds because we should instead give people money to assist them, not acknowledging the social programs that are in place right now, that we cannot be trusted, that it is because of elections, and the paranoia of politicians on that side, Mr. Speaker, will not deter the government of St. Lucia from pursuing the developmental program. So, Mr. Speaker, there is a lot that is being said out there. At a time when I want to reiterate that we should come together and do everything that we can to support the development program of this country. There are obstructionists in here and out there. There are people who spread propaganda, wanton propaganda, knowing fully well that what they are saying is misleading. And there are those who are trying to derail the program of the government for fear that if those programs are implemented, their political prospects will be diminished. Mr. Speaker, it's not about any political prospects. It is about the development of our country. You would be aware, Mr. Speaker, like everyone sitting around this table here is today, that when it comes to the development of this country, that is, if you look up the St. Lucian dictionary, you will see synonym for United Workers' Party. Accompanying the reign of the United Workers' Party is an upswing in development in this country. I wish I could have said the same for my colleagues on the other side. Mr. Speaker, to suggest that we have done nothing. Mr. Speaker, when we assumed office in 2016, I want to remind every member sitting here that the unemployment rate was at an unprecedented 25% in this country. Mr. Speaker, prior to COVID-19, now you never talk that we mismanaged before COVID-19, that's why we're in this situation here. As if people don't listen to news and people do not know what is happening in other countries. St. Lucia is in a bubble by itself. Mr. Speaker, I want to remind members that prior to COVID-19, this administration had reduced unemployment by a whopping 9%. Mr. Speaker, you call that nothing? Honorable member from Denver North, Mr. Speaker, calls that nothing? These are the things they put you in office to do. Not grow what is supposed to shrink and shrink what is supposed to grow. Mr. Speaker, we grew the economy. We shrunk the unemployment rate. They grew the unemployment rate and shrunk the economy. So it is not surprising to me. It is not surprising to me that they have it all upside down. And that is why when they speak, they give you the reverse of reality. Mr. Speaker, yes, to an extent I'm an idealist, but I am also a realist. The circumstances we face right now is one that requires many sacrifices. And Mr. Speaker, among the sacrifices that we are to make as a government, we have begun making them. Prioritizing where we invest the country's resources. When we borrow, we make that borrowing an investment for this country. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to call on all St. Lucians, including members of the opposition, to recognize that we are all in this together. It requires sacrifices by every single St. Lucian. And I suspect that some of the members opposite Mr. Speaker may want to think that they are sacrificing their political prospects if they do the right thing. But St. Lucians recognize people for the right thing. Sometimes I must admit, the reward is delayed. I've had the experience where it has been delayed. But righteousness always comes to those who are just. And we want to manage the situation in an even-handed, righteous, and just manner. For every St. Lucian, Mr. Speaker, we recognize the pain that many St. Lucians are going through as a result of the loss of employment. Mr. Speaker, which better government would you trust with the management of this situation right now and going forward, but a government that knows how to reduce unemployment? So, Mr. Speaker, when you see us taking measures such as rebuilding roads, and not just the Millennium Highway, the Honorable Member for Sufra told you you're going to spend over $200 million in road. I know that is frightening. If you are an aspirant to political office and you're not on this side, I know that is threatening. I know that is disheartening. But remember, it is national development. It is in the interest of our people. And if you are concerned and interested in the interest of our people and the development of our country, you put your political aspirations as being secondary when you know and you realize that the country is in safe hands, the country is heading in the right direction. What you ought to do is lend your support. You'll get more political credit for that than to try to derail and obstruct. That is my advice to those who are attempting to throw a bad light on what we are doing. But at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding. You can tell the people what you want. Rhetoric, talk. But we, on the other hand, will show the people what we are doing. Work, delivery. So, Mr. Speaker, I am not fazed. I am disappointed. I'm disappointed because I see on the other side many seasoned politicians who have been around in and out of office and ought to know what obtains. Yes, you have not handled any crisis to the magnitude of what we are dealing with right now. But even out of those crises, you did not manage the economy. You did not bring down the unemployment rate. You did not fulfill all the promises that you made, the projects that you talked about. We, in spite of this crisis, will deliver to our people. And Mr. Speaker, you asked me to stay on topic. We're talking about roads, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I promise the constituency of Grosily, having been given a constituency with the most deplorable roads that you will see anywhere, both in terms of condition and numbers, I promise them that it will take a Herculean effort on my part to make a significant dent in upgrading the conditions of these roads. Mr. Speaker, I stand by that statement that I am going to make a significant dent in the upgrade of the roads in the constituency of Grosily. If, Mr. Speaker, by the end of my tenure, I will not have provided upgrade and maintenance for at least 40 of the bad roads I have in my constituency, I will not seek re-election. I want this statement to be recorded. They promised me. Yeah, I will. You know I will get my roads. I will get my roads.
But it will stab you in your back.
I will get my roads. And you know why I will get my roads? Because I am part of an administration that recognizes that we have to deliver. When we make promises, we have to stand by our promises. And I know how uncomfortable it makes some to hear what I'm saying. I know how uncomfortable it makes them to hear that. But Mr. Speaker, I have always delivered, and I will stay with the administration that delivers, because I want to continue to deliver. So, Mr. Speaker, at the end of the day,
Too late.
I want to commend
Stuck in your way.
this resolution for the support of the entire House. It is not too late for some people here to retract. It is not too late to make a turnaround. Because you will be judged, Mr. Speaker, you will be judged by how you respond to the interest and the benefit of the people. And if you try to obstruct, they will see you as an obstructionist. If you do not support their interests, they will know that you are against them. Mr. Speaker, it is not about politics right now. It is about socio-economic growth and returning this country on an even keel, coming out of COVID-19 in the near future, that we can be even stronger and better than we were going into COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, once again, I give my full, wholehearted, unequivocal support to this motion that is before the House. Thank you very much.